Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I am Moody and I'm a 3D artist with about 15 years experience. So in today's video we're going to be sculpting a character called Jebediah Longnutts. He's a character from a YouTuber called Chado. They play GTA RP on a server called Circuit, and Jebediah has got to be one of my favourite characters that Chado does. He's started out as a corrupt cop, now he's the corrupt chief of police, which I just find absolutely hilarious. So if you want to know more about Chado, you can find him on Instagram under ChadoYT, and you can go and subscribe to his YouTube. I believe it's just Chado. But yeah, you know, you'll find him. If you want to know who he is, you'll find him. He's out there. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to try and get the head sculpt completely finished so that I can just leave that and work on the rest of the body, because there's a lot going on with this sculpt in terms of clothing and just random little items that need to be sculpted. So I want to get the head done and out of the way. So what I'm going to do is try and I'm going to, using the reference images that I was able to find, because this guy's a video game character, so there's not really a lot of like decent reference out there for this guy. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm going to try and get as much of the head sculpt done as I can. I'm going to add the glasses, the mustache, and you know, the hair and everything like that, and some of the finer details before I move off of this and move on to the body. So with the finer details, what I will be doing is using the clay tool, and I'll be setting the stroke to, I think, stamp or something like that. I think it's locked intensity. And we'll be using alphas to create a lot of the finer details. So we'll let this play out for now, and I'll jump back in if anything, you know, pops up that I want to talk about. But yeah, enjoy the head sculpt for now. Something I want to point out about this side view, I didn't realise it at the time, and again mostly because there isn't a lot of decent reference to model from of this character. The side view's actually got like a slight smirk to it, so it threw me off a little when I was trying to sculpt the nose. I do figure it out eventually, but I couldn't figure out why the nose kept looking really weird from the side, and then when I fixed that it looked really weird from the front. And it's because in the side view he's actually smirking and smiling, so you know, just not an excuse, I'm just letting you know what's happened. But yeah, you know, we'll let the head sculpt play out for now. And I don't know if I said it at the start, but I want to shout my girlfriend out for this. It was actually her suggestion to do a sculpt of Jebediah. She absolutely loves the character. You know, we started watching the Circuit RP because she used to watch a lot of Expert Thief. And yeah, he's funny, but it became repetitive again. You know, she didn't really watch anyone else but Expert, and then I suggested that she find some other GTA YouTubers just to, you know, to shake it up a little bit if you want. And we ended up actually finding a YouTuber called Lenny Barn. He plays the GTA Hitman a lot, and he was quite funny, and she enjoyed his videos. And through that, we discovered all of the other characters in here that are actually YouTubers, like Chad, Keegan, and Waffloos, and people like that. So if you want to go and check out any Circuit RP stuff, you know, you can find them all on well, you can find Chado on Instagram, and you know, you'll find them if you search Circuit RP on YouTube as well, I'm sure. But yeah, thank you to my girlfriend for suggesting this sculpt. I had fun doing it. So while this ear sculpt is playing out, and I think we're going to move on to some tidy up in a minute as well, I thought it'd be funny to share a couple of quotes from Jebediah just to give you an idea of what the character's about. So one of my favourite quotes personally is he beats down a suspect for jaywalking. So he's being told off by his superior, and it cuts to him beating down a suspect for jaywalking, finding drugs in his pockets. Like, then he says something along the lines of, "What is this, meth?" And then he says, "I'll be the fucking judge of that." And then it cuts back to the office, and he's like, the chief's sort of like trying not to laugh, and he's going, "He then proceeded to smoke the meth in front of me." And yeah, Jeb's sort of like just arguing with it, saying, "No, this is all a blatant lie. I'm a you know, a decent police officer. People love me," and stuff like this, and it's just so funny. But there's a few good ones, like when he transfers to the LSPD. One of the things he says in his video is that he got kicked out of the force for planting drugs on a disabled child. So these videos are absolutely hilarious. They do the roleplay really, really well as well, and they don't take it too seriously, which I think is amazing. A lot of people take this sort of stuff too seriously, and it makes it not fun anymore, so these guys are brilliant. Okay, so here we go. We're going to be adding some of the wrinkles because he's a middle-aged to older gentleman, the character that he's playing. So we're going to be using alphas to add a bunch of wrinkles and just, you know, general bits of detail around the face. I wanted to try and make the face a decent sculpt because, you know, in the end I plan on 3D printing these, and this model in particular I truly tried to make it look and feel like a 3D printed sculpture or statue that you might have on your shelf. So you know, to do these alphas, you need to find something that you like wrinkles maybe, or just some detail that you like. You need to turn it into a black and white image, in something like Photoshop or Krita or something like that. It also needs to be a square because Nomad's, you know, alphas are square. And yeah, then you import it into the brush settings there up on the right. Where the alpha is, you just import it into there, select it, and then you'll need to go into the stroke settings and set it to, I believe it is lock intensity. It'll be one of those two, lock intensity or lock radius, and then you'll be able to drag them out like stamps in ZBrush. So yeah, just gonna do a little bit more on the hair, and then I think we're close to being done with the head sculpt. I'm then going to start working on the proportions of the body before I drag the head over and use it to adjust his height and make sure that he's the correct height. So yeah, once we're done with the hair, we're going to start on the body proportions, I believe. Yeah, so here we go. I found a decent reference that I'm going to be using from now on for the muscle setup, the muscle system, and all of that sort of stuff, and just general proportions. Something I did do very quickly. I think it just happened super fast because it's you know, sped up. I did actually paint the eyes the correct color. He's got brown eyes because he's got dark hair. And yeah, so what we're going to do here is just generally work on proportions and size and things like that. And we're going to use the base mesh that I've set up so that I can, you know, like there, pulling the muscles around, working on the thickness of the arms and things like that. So yeah, we'll let this play out, and once the proportions are there and I'm pretty happy with the proportions, I'm going to make sure that he's the right sort of proportions height wise, let's say. So he should be about 7.5 heads high. Here we go, I'm just going to do it now. And once I'm happy with that, I think we'll mirror the parts over and start merging these together to have individual pieces to sculpt on and get some rough anatomy in there. So yeah, we'll let this play out for now, but like I said, it's just going to be rough blocking and some basic sculpting of the anatomy, maybe some merging of the other parts like the arms and the legs and bits like that. But we're going to do some of that before we pose it, so I'll let this play out. Rearranging the layers here to make it easier to work on. Probably shouldn't have mirrored the arm over straight away before merging everything. I wanted to kind of make sure it was going to work proportionately. So with here, what I'm doing is I'm bringing in these weapons that I've got. I've worked on these previously, and these are just for scale. I want to make sure that the weapons are the right size. They're going to fit in his hands correctly. And I think here we go, we're going to merge the arms now and start doing some basic anatomy on them before moving on to the pose. Going to sort everything into the correct layers again, make sure everything's going to work before we go ahead and start working on the pose. Another thing I want to mention, somebody brought up in the comments that it would be nice to have more than one song play through these videos. I hear you, I do want to do that. I currently don't make any money out of this, so you know, it is what it is. I get a certain amount of downloads a month. And I don't want to just chuck them all into one video and then not be able to, you know, choose a new song for the next sculpt or anything like that. So, you know, moving forward, once I, you know, am able to make any type of money or even just the smallest bit of money, I will buy a subscription to one of these music platforms and you know, hopefully have a wider selection of music for you moving forward. But you know, for now it's just, there's not really a lot I can do about it. I can't throw money that I don't have at something as much as I want to do it. I can't just throw money at it at the moment, so it is what it is for now, guys. I do apologize. I'll try and pick good songs for you, but I've only got so many to choose from. Okay, so I'm happy with the pose, happy with how the proportions look. So I think at this point we're going to start merging the larger sections, like the entire arm will be merged here. We'll do the same with the legs in a minute. I don't actually go really intense on the anatomy sculpt on this because he's wearing like a full police uniform. In fact, this is mostly for the proportions and to make sure that the clothes are being sculpted correctly. So by that I mean I want the creases to come from the correct spots and things like that. So what I'll do is I'll get a load of stuff in, I'll do a basic sculpt on the body, I'll bring the clothes in and start sculpting those, and I'll delete the body later underneath because you know, it becomes quite an intense scene in terms of poly count and vertex count and things like that. So yeah, we'll let this anatomy play out, and I'll jump in if anything interesting comes up. A lot of this is at the moment just going to be basic anatomy. Like I said, some of this is going to be removed, so I'll probably just leave this to play out and I'll jump back in if anything interesting happens. Probably won't be until we start sculpting the clothes now though, so yeah, let's let this play out and listen to the one song that I'm able to download for this video. So another thing I want to quickly say is I don't end up actually merging the head to the body, because this is eventually I want to 3D print this, because I'm actually really pleased with how this came out. So I don't merge the head so that it makes it easier to keep the detail. I can keep the super high poly sculpt on the face and the head, and I'm able to just later on down the line I'll be able to easily grab the head, you know, and have it as a separate piece for printing and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the only reason that I didn't merge the entire body together. There was also no need for it because I was going to delete the majority of the body anyway. So yeah, pretty happy with how that anatomy sculpt came out. So I think what we're going to do at the next is just bring in some basic clothes. I think it's basic trousers with not much of a sculpt going on, and we're going to do the same with the shirt. I don't know if we move on to the boots just yet, but again, this is just to get the base meshes in for the clothing so that I can sculpt on it. So the boots come in now, just a rough shape of the boots, you know, just so that I've got something to work with a bit later. I just want to get these things in there so that I'm ready to just sculpt them rather than have to fart around trying to get the meshes that I need. So yeah, we'll jump back in again in a minute when I actually start doing proper sculpting on these clothes. So I tried a few different methods of getting this the sole of this shoe on, because it was curved really quite drastically at the tip. I do get it in the end. I decided just to, you know, do a mesh extraction. But yeah, I tried to do a few different things just to keep it a bit cleaner, and none of them worked out. So we just end up going back to what we know and extracting the mesh. I keep saying we. I think it's because I've got a decent amount of subscribers now, so I feel like these aren't just mine anymore. You know, I want people to enjoy my work. So if I say we when I'm doing a sculpt, it's just because I'm referring to you guys as well. So yeah, for that reason, I hope you enjoy it, because I really did. So we're going to start sculpting the clothing here. I've dragged in some reference for some smart trousers, and yeah, we're just going to follow the reference and get some of these creases and things in there where they look like they belong. You know, none of this should be insanely difficult, and I don't really think it is. I might be wrong. Maybe it's harder for people that are new to this, but you know, this side of things shouldn't be difficult if you have decent reference. So again, if you've got questions, pop them in the comments. I'll do the best I can to answer them. And yeah, let's let these trousers play out. We'll talk a bit more when we get onto the shirt, but it's going to be a lot of the same. Just following us a decent reference and trying to give my best guess where the clothing might crease from or where it pinches and stuff like that. You know, these things just come with practice, guys. So there we do the kind of manual decimation stuff I was talking about a couple of videos back. I just want to try and keep control of the scene, because these types of sculpt can get completely out of control in terms of the vertex count, and that's just something that you don't really want. Like, you know, the scene will crash, or you could end up having it corrupt and stuff like that. So here I try a couple of different things for the collar. This is something I struggled with. I don't really do these types of things that often. Again, I'm an animator by trade, so this is all stuff that I just enjoy doing as a kind of hobby. But you know, we do end up with a decent-ish sort of shirt sculpt. I tried to sculpt it straight into the mesh so it was just sculpted on, what I end up doing is sculpting up underneath so that we've got like the underside of it, and then I'll bring in a tube tool just to create the overlap. Like there we go, you can see it there. Yeah, I mean it came out okay. You can't really tell that it's two separate pieces. Here again, for the shirt, I'm just trying to get the parts that I need ready, and having the badges out ready to kind of like stamp my alphas onto. A rough sort of layout of the police logo, or the words on his back. I try a couple of things here. I end up actually making this in a separate scene and bringing it in because the extractions for the letters were really low quality. So this is fine for now, but what I do later is I go into a separate scene and actually create the text in a separate scene to try and keep it clean. So what we're doing here now is we're going to start working on the body armor. So I'm creating the underside of the armor, which is where all of the actual armor is. So this is the base, if you want, of the bulletproof vest, and then everything else just gets added on top, like boxes and sculpted up boxes and shapes and things like that for like pouches, and you know that's kind of where a lot of the time was spent, I want to say, on this sculpt, because there's a lot going on with it in terms of what he has to carry. Radio, guns, badges, pepper spray, cups, it goes on. I ended up not actually sculpting some of the stuff that he has on his belt because it was taking so friggin' long, but I got as much in as I could and tried to make it still feel like a police belt and a police vest. So he doesn't have a taser, for example, and stuff like that, but you know, these things take time, and I just wanted to get it out there for you guys to see. So So yeah, here we are adding some like base meshes for the utilities on the vest, you know, pouches and stuff like that. So these are all just base meshes for now, and yeah, we'll start adding in extra details like the covers for the straps over the top there, and the place to hold the radio and things like that. So yeah, I mean, you know, this is just adding detail at this point, and then we'll do the final sculpt on all of this in a little while once we've got everything in we need. Yeah, more detail here. I used this same buckle for most of the clips in this sculpt. So around his belt, this police utility belt, and you know the straps on his bulletproof vest. But again, this is just cutting out shapes out of a cube. It's nothing crazy. So yeah, this sort of stuff should be relatively easy again as well. Again here, just base meshes for now, adding in like clips, spare clips, the radio, just base meshes. I've duplicated the gun clip there from his holster. These are only here for now as sort of placeholders. I will sculpt on these again in a little bit. So here we go, removing the body from underneath because the seam was starting to get heavy. And yeah, we're just going to move forward and just keep adding the basic shapes that we need. Sculpting the radio at the moment, so again, this is just a really simple shape. I think that you don't necessarily need to sculpt a insanely high detailed radio for something like this, you know, because it's going to be 3D printed as well. And you know, the odds of someone inspecting the 3D print that closely, apart from maybe the person who it is either gifted to or whoever's going to see it on the shelf, no one's going to see that. Plus, you know, when you 3D print, I've heard that it's a sort of it smooths it out as much as it can, you know what I mean? So if you've got triangles, it doesn't go point to point, it will just do sort of like an actuation or an so it will try and go somewhere in the middle to give you a decent representation of what's going into the slicer and what's being printed. So, you know, again, insane detailed. It really depends on what you're trying to do with it. And it's not that I don't want to print insanely detailed sculpt, it's just that I don't think my sculpts are going to be big enough. My prints are going to be big enough for that. So, you know, I guess it'll be a learning curve if I'm wrong, but I think I'm pretty happy with the level of detail on this. I think this would look more than suitable as a 3D print. So, yeah, moving on. Let's get some more of these base meshes in before we start to refine and sculpt. So here we go, sort of like adding some just creases and general sort of like general detail. Like nothing here has to be insane. Again, same with the radio and the holsters and the clips. All of it's just going to be basic details that will look fine from a certain distance away, right? Duplicating stuff that I've already sculpted. There's no way I'm going to like re-sculpt 3 or 4 separate pouches when they're all going to look the same anyway. And the same with the clips. I'm not going to sculpt more than one of these before duplicating it over and over. It's stupid not to reuse these things. So yeah, we'll reuse as much as we can when we can. So here I'm going through the model and just reducing where I can, reducing the poly count, because it started to creep up to nearly 5 million, and you know that's a lot. So yeah, I tried as best I can to reduce where I could before moving on with the sculpt. So another thing I think has happened here is I actually forgot to press record when I was sorting out some of the stuff on this model. So the police logo, the police text, is actually much higher fidelity now and looks a lot cleaner. I absolutely forgot to press record. That's on me, but you didn't miss anything interesting, guys. So. So base meshes for the pepper spray, the cuffs, and the pouch for the cuffs is all done. Again, there's not a lot super interesting happening here because these are mostly base meshes, and when I do move on to the sculpts, they happen kind of quickly. So yeah, like here, a few creases down the side because I wanted it to feel like it was holding the cuffs. You don't want to drop those. I scrap these in a minute. I just end up going with a loose sort of representation of a holster. The straps were looking weird, so I just left it. I'll come back to that in a little while, but I don't actually use the straps on that in the end. Okay, so same as whenever we do shoes, whenever we do boots or anything like that, just tube tools, guys. We're going to just place where the laces look good, and then we're going to add the lace holes in a little while up the side, and just, you know, tweak it as needed. There's absolutely nothing insane going on here with these laces or boots. So yeah, here we go, adding some of the eyelets for the laces and just tweaking everything in so it looks reasonable, you know. The only advice I would offer on stuff like this is, because it's so tiny and you're barely going to see it, it's easy to add too much detail to these in terms of like vertexes and things like that. You don't need them. So despite the fact that this is reasonably high detailed on the laces, I do come back in a little bit later and reduce this quite significantly, because you just never see it. You don't need that much detail, you know, like there, for example, like I smooth it out a lot, and then when I come back to this in a little while, I'll just do a quad remesh, and it all works out fine. I just think that it's easy. My point is it's easy to get lost in these tiny details here, and you're never going to see them. You're never going to pay that much attention to them, right? So like here, for example, there's no point in sculpting up under the trousers. There's just no point. You're never going to see it. Okay, so that small piece of the body that I left in by the shirt, that was always intended to be his undershirt. So we're just sculpting that in real quick. I think I do cut some of that away because we don't need all of that mesh. And then we're going to move on to sculpting the arms. So we did a remesh on them, and we're just going to do the anatomy on the arms now. Make the arms look as good as possible. The hands are always a bit of a problem. I think I need to make the fingers thicker on the male base mesh, because I always, without a shadow of a doubt, will always have to go through this and sort of widen up some of the fingers. So I'm probably going to come back in and fix that on the base mesh at some point. When I do that, I don't know. You know, these things just, I forget to do these things. So I'll just move on to the next sculpt and start getting excited about that, and completely forget to do this. So, you know, as long as I remember, I will start. You should start seeing less of that hassle, let's say, around sculpting the fingers on these guys. So we'll let this play out, because it's mostly just you know, the usual anatomy that you've probably seen from me like 20 times now. So yeah, we'll let the hand sculpt play out, and I'll jump back in if anything happens. If you ever want to isolate something to sculpt on, or anything's in the way, the hide button on the left side there is what you're looking for. Excuse me. Okay, so here I think we're just going to go in and do a little bit of cleanup on some of the parts of the guns, because when I hit remesh or smooth these things, it was showing that because they were such low poly meshes before, it was putting the creases in there. So I had to redo some of those. At this point, I think we're going to start adding some of the detail to the badges and just the emblems that are on him, like his shirt and his actual police badge and stuff like that. So yeah, we're going to build his police badge here. And then we're going to move on to some of the other emblems, like the American flag on his sleeve and things like that. So yeah, again, we'll let this play out. This is just very much just using an alpha that I downloaded of Jebediah's badge, set it to grayscale, popped it in as an alpha, and yeah, there we end up with his police badge. Super duper cool. Bro actually just said super duper. Oh my god. Okay, so for the radio, what we ended up doing here was we used the tube tool, made it all the way around his back, and if you go down to, there's a section underneath the tube tool called spiral, and you can control a lot about how this coil spirals. You can set the thickness, the amount it coils and things like that, and you still have full control over it because it's still a curve. So that's a super cool option. Any type of cable like this you've got to do, guys, easy. Just use the tube tool, go down to the spiral settings and have a play around with those. They are super fun. Bro just said super fun. Oh my gosh. Okay, so just a bit of cleanup on the weapon as well, because I want to do some edge wear and stuff like that on this. I need a little bit more detail on some of the parts. So yeah, just going in, cleaning up these bits and making sure that they are suitable for painting on in a little while, for adding the edge wear and stuff like that. Yeah, other than that, it's just going to be a bit of cleanup, I think, at this point. Like I said, making sure I've got enough vertex points to work with when I'm painting, and just, yeah, I've got to do the glasses still, but they don't take very long, and then I think we're going to move on to painting. So yeah, super pleased with this so far. It's looking really good. Well happy. So we're going to make the base. I wanted to add just some paving underneath him, and I wanted to make the base feel more like a real base that you would see on an actual print or an actual sculpture or statue. And then at the front I just add the GTA 5 logo and the boys Circuit RP logo. Again, I just wanted to make it clear that this was supposed to be a sculpture that goes on your shelf. And at some point in the future, it will be a sculpture that goes on your shelf, because my girlfriend absolutely loves Jebediah Longnutts, and I think this is going to be the first thing she asks me to print when I can eventually get a 3D printer. So thank you, Chad. I appreciate all of the laughter that you bring to us, but oh my god, my missus will not watch anything else right now. And as much as I love your videos, bro, she's obsessed and it's just insane. It worries me sometimes. So there we go, Circuit RP logo, GTA 5 logo added. I think now we're going to move on to painting, and this process we've all seen me do 100 times. you know, add the layers, add an underneath skin layer, add a top skin layer with some opacity on it, and then start painting up all of the colours underneath. The one thing I do slightly different on this one is I actually, rather than just sort of splodge blue and yellow and red around, with the blue in particular, I try to mark out roughly where the veins in his arms might be, just to make it look and feel a bit more realistic. I wanted to push myself a little bit on this sculpt, and I think I've done it. I've done that. So I didn't want to just have it in the sculpt. I pushed myself with the painting a little bit as well, which you'll see when we get onto the actual, you know, the details of it all. Because at the moment I'm just adding base colours, so that I've got an idea of how it will look and what colours are going to go where and stuff like that. But like I said, when I move on to actually painting the skin, I do actually this time add where the blue goes underneath. I try and add that where the thick veins are, where the large veins are. So yeah, you'll see what I mean when we get to it. But for now, yeah, we're just going to keep adding. Oh, last thing that I forgot, obviously, was his shoulder badges. The Moroccan flag. Land of the free, baby. It's fucking Morocco, baby. We're on to the painting now, adding the details, because that was the last thing I realised that I hadn't actually put the stamp on it. And yeah, now we're just going to move on to the painting, everybody. Adding the detail, adding the colours, using what reference we do have, and just doing the best I can with it. I do end up setting a depth, a paint depth on some of it, because I was just getting the paint everywhere. So yeah, we set a paint depth, which means that it will only paint down a certain amount of pixels and things like that. And it just makes things easier. You do see that a bit more clearly when I get down to painting the logo on the base, but there is a depth set to the painting that I do on some of this. So here we go, red for the cheeks, where the blood vessels go, where any blood vessels are going to be close to the surface. Like I said, when you blush, you get red cheeks. Your ears will glow red with the light behind them, so there's plenty of blood vessels and capillaries up there. And then blue for anywhere where there is dark veins, or you know, around his beard where there's hair on his face and stuff like that. And yellow where there's any fat or any bone. And you know, again, like I said, guys, we've seen this 100 times. That red dot there is just so that I've got a reference for the colour as well. And yeah, like I said, we've seen this 100 times, bros. Ladies as well, sorry, ladies and gents, we've seen this 100 times. So I'll let this paint play out for now, and I'll jump in if anything interesting happens. So here we are adding the blue on the arms, and if you did notice, I went over some of it and added like where I painted was mostly where the veins would be. I think I come back in and I define this a little bit more in a little while. You can see it particularly when I start painting on the wrists. But yeah, I just thought I'd try it out because I've seen people doing it on real 3D printed models, and I thought it looked cool. So, you know, I think it worked out pretty nicely. And at this point, we're just going to be moving on to adding edge wear and like a dirt pass where any grit or dirt might build up on his uniform, or particularly on his bulletproof vest. But yeah, most of this at this point is going to be edge wear and dirt pass. So yeah, we'll let this play out for now. See what we end up with. If anything interesting comes up, I'll jump in. So I made the vest and the belt a bit dirtier than I do anywhere else, because I imagine that like his uniform would be clean, but I'm guessing that, you know, the equipment probably gets used more often than it does get washed. So, you know, the vest and the belt and things like that are going to be a bit dirtier. and his uniform would be clean. So, you know, that's my reasoning behind not adding a dirt pass to the uniform anyway. Just a edgeware pass on the weapon, and then we're going to move on to the utility belt and then the shoes, and I think we're pretty much done. Oh, actually no, we'll have to paint the base properly, but then I think we're done after that. So there's only about 5 minutes left on the video from what I can see on my screen here. So I'll jump back in if anything interesting comes up again. But one thing I do want to say is I try and record these videos, the audio in one take, because they're so bloody long. I don't want to have to keep going back and editing and doing any of that sort of malarkey. I just want to get these things out, and for me it's more about the work and the model than what I say or how I'm perceived. So yeah, you know, if there's any mistakes or you hear me stuttering, that's just because I'm really too lazy to go back and redo any of this stuff. I try and do all of it in one pass because I'm not a video editor, I'm none of that, guys. I'm an animator by trade. And this is just something I enjoy doing, and it's a hobby that I'm trying to get into. So yeah, you know, just bear with me. If anything doesn't make sense or I'm repeating myself, it is what it is, guys. I'm not going to keep going back and recording stuff because honestly I can't be bothered. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the videos as they are and the format, let's say, that I record in. And again, in terms of the music, I'll do better in the future. It's just going to have to wait until I'm able to bring some type of revenue in from this. So yeah, if you want better music and more production value, shit, this is going to sound so like cliche, but you know, share the video, like and subscribe, and you know, I've got a decent portion of people that watch but aren't subscribed. So yeah, if you guys could sub, that'd help massively. And yeah, the more people that see this and the quicker I can reach my subscriber goals. I want to try and get to like 500 subscribers before the end of the year, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but to me it is. So if you know anyone that might enjoy this, please share it with them, let them know that it exists, and yeah, I want that subscriber count up to 500 before the end of the year. That'd be awesome. So here we are. I do the depth, set the depth on this because I didn't want to keep rubbing stuff out. You can see it on the circuit here. You can see how easy that goes on. It's because there's a depth to it, and as long as you don't come off that height, you know, it should only paint on the top edges. So yeah, I think this is the last detail that I ended up forgetting, was the fingernails, and once we are done with that, we'll move on to the turnarounds of the character. Oh, and the eyelashes. I realised he looked a bit weird without them, so we quickly add some eyelashes here. And then I think we're done. We're going to light it and move on to the turnaround. So again, same as usual, classic 3-point light setup. Main light, rim light and fill light to bring some light into the shadows. backlight just to pop him off of the background a little. And yeah, we're pretty much done. So yeah, super happy with that. I know my girlfriend's going to be happy with it. She's a massive fan of Chado. So am I. If anyone's enjoyed this, like and subscribe and share it. If anyone's a fan of Chad or Lenny or anyone like that, you know, share it with them too. I'd love to get Chad's feedback on this, and you know, I hope he likes it, but it's not a massive deal if I don't hear anything, you know, because I sculpt these things because I enjoy the characters. It says it in the title of my YouTube. Sculpting characters I enjoy until I can afford a 3D printer. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Go and subscribe to Chado. You can find him on Instagram at ChadoYT, and you know, same with the Circuit RP. If you want to go and play roleplay with these guys, their server is called Circuit, and if you ask Chado about that, I'm sure he will help you out with it and a link to the server and stuff like that. But yeah, thanks again for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Huge fan of Chad, huge fan of Jebediah. Like and subscribe, share it, and thanks for all the support so far. That'll do me. I think that's it. Yeah, enjoy the last turnaround, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Happy sculpting, y'all.